Welcome to Michigan in Focus. I'm Scott McClellan, a Michigan and Minnesota reporter. With me today is Tom Gantert, one of the Center Square's managing editors. So in the last week, we've been breaking down a lot of the budgets, and we found that Michigan's government spending has ballooned quite a bit from 2017 to 2024. But if I'm correct, you've been covering state government a lot longer than those time periods. Is that right?
Yes.
When did you become a reporter covering Michigan?
1983.
Oh, wow. Probably a lot smaller budget back then.
Yeah. You know, what the story you wrote about was Whitmer's increase in spending since she took office. Her first budget, she won in November 2018. Her first budget was 2019-20. At that point, the state funds dedicated to her budget, not the federal funds, was $33.2 billion. Her fourth budget, which was 2022-23, was up to $44.1 billion. So it jumped from 33.2 to 44.1. That's a 33% increase in state spending in her overall budget. Another subset of that is K through 12 school funding. 2019-20, it was $13 billion. In 2022-23, it's $17 billion. That's the current budget we're in. That's a 31% increase. Now, it's kind of interesting to note that throughout those first four budgets that she's had, the GOP has had control of the state of the House and Senate. So this upcoming budget that she just approved is her first budget where the Democrats have what they call the trifecta in terms of controlling the House, Senate, and Whitmer being the Democratic governor. So the spending was going up even with the GOP having some say in the budget. It's gone up more in this recently proposed budget, which the GOP doesn't have the votes to stand in the way.
I mean, the Democrats haven't held a trifecta in 40 years?
Now, it's kind of interesting to note one thing, and that is when she first took office in her first budget in 2019-20 was the start of the pandemic. And just to give you an idea what that meant, federal funding has just been off the charts. So, the state government, 2018-19, the first year before the pandemic, got $23.5 billion. Okay. It went up to $33.5 billion the first year of the pandemic, 2019-20. Since then, it's gone from $33.5 billion to $39.1 billion to $40.8 billion. That's, to give that an idea, you want to go back 10 years to 2013-14. 2013-14, the state government got $20.5 billion in federal funds. It doubled in 2021-22 to 40.8, and that's due to the pandemic. Okay. But in 2022-23, the current year, it went from $48.8 billion to $31.1. So we're starting to see the federal pandemic money starting to go down for the first time, and that's a significant drop to go from $40.8 billion to $31.1. It's a $9 billion drop. It's still $8 billion higher than pre-pandemic 2018-19, but that is the lowest amount since, the pandemic started, the $31.1 billion.
I guess we'll have to see if Michigan is going to feel some sort of fiscal hangover from all of this spending and then having revenues drop.
Michigan is just like every other state. They've talked about, the term's kind of a cliche now, but this fiscal cliff that people are going to happen. You got one more year of it. All of the federal pandemic money is supposed to be spent by 2024. So we got one more year of this. And then we see how governments are going to deal with the complete drop off of, no longer having that cushion of pandemic emergency funds.
So, I mean, with increases of billions in spending, how could we go about measuring the return on investment in these programs? Is it like if that money was spent, if it trained Michiganders and it got them a better job? What do you think?
The only way you can look, because when you're talking about what we're talking about, billions of dollars, you have to look into what are you getting in return? Well, in this upcoming budget, we know that one of the biggest benefactors of an increase in spending was the Michigan Department of Education. They got like almost it was like 52% increase in spending in Whitmer's proposed budget. And the reason for that is because they're going to start doing more and more programs. In terms of what you got for that, how are our students doing in terms of learning? And not good. If you're going to try and look and say, what am I getting for what I'm spending? You have to go by department, because that includes police. It includes, Michigan State Police. It includes school spending, K through 12. It includes, higher education, which is colleges, and, are we seeing a higher graduation rate in junior colleges and four-year colleges with increased spending? You'd have to go department by department to make that assessment.
It's very interesting to me that the Michigan is increasing spending in education as the pupil count is dropping. And in the same way, the state of Michigan is increasing overall spending while its population hasn't been growing. People are definitely leaving the state. Do you think that increased spending is some sort of last-ditch effort to attract residents or keep them in the state? What do you think is behind this?
When I look at spending at the state level in Michigan, it's something that goes up, whether it's the GOP in control or whether it's Whitmer. I mean, it should be noted that when Snyder was governor, state spending went up every year. So it's not like the Republican Party is not spending, but just the Democrats, they all are. There's always an increase in spending with government. So I think that's a more of an issue of big government, in terms of what government is supposed to do. It's expanding every year, not getting smaller.
Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. I'm Scott McClellan. Please subscribe, and thanks for listening.